Hello everyone, today we are going to look into the varied problem solving strategies. So this video will give you an elaborate understanding of the different problem solving strategies. So after we actually represent a problem, the next thing that we need to do is to adopt a strategy that will be useful to solve a problem. So now we're going to understand what are the different strategies that we can actually use. The two common approaches to problem solving is algorithms and heuristics. So we're going to look at what algorithms really mean. So algorithms basically are a combination of responses which involves a lot of exhaustive research, which is basically very efficient and always leads to the correct answer or the correct solution. Okay, so but you need to know that this particular approach is very time consuming. For example, say you have got an ATM card and then you forget your ATM pin number. All right, so an algorithm approach would mean to say that you will kind of put all possible alternatives to figure out what that right ATM pin would be. So beginning from 0000 to 0001, then 0002, like that, all possible alternatives. So like we know, using this approach you will definitely find out what the ATM pin may be, but it may take you a very long time. So this involves a lot of time, and this is very exhaustive, and it's very hard to use algorithm as an approach in day-to-day lives. All right, so day-to-day life issues, it's very hard to really use a lot of alternatives at the same time because of the time constraints. So the next thing is heuristics. Heuristics basically is choosing an alternative wherein you don't try to choose something that you definitely feel will lead to a solution, but you know that it may lead to a solution. Okay, so there is a possibility that when you try this you may have a solution. So it does not guarantee a solution, but it has a possibility or a probability chance that you may hit a solution. Okay, so we basically try to use heuristics. It's described as a general rule of the thumb that usually may be correct. Okay, sometimes it may go wrong also, so you need to know that. So you have to weigh the cost of the heuristics based on the time you have, okay, and the speed at which the heuristic is done, and the importance of the task. Okay, so suppose the task is really important and you really feel, no, I can never go wrong, and then it's probably better that you work on the task using some other problem solving strategy over a heuristic, because in heuristics there are high chances that you may go wrong. So let's go back to our ATM pin example. Okay, so suppose you have an ATM pin with you, you have an ATM card with you, and say your ATM machine allows you to only try 4 times. After 4 incorrect chances, you kind of the card kind of gets blocked. Okay, and it's an emergency, you really need that money. So in such a situation, what will you do? Okay, so in such a situation you cannot use an algorithm because you cannot do anything in 4 possible alternatives, right? Okay, so you will have to use a heuristic. So heuristics in such a situation will be very helpful. So at that point, what do you think would be the 4 alternatives? So you may make certain educated guesses about the alternatives. Probably you would fix it as a birth date, or as a number that you have for another ATM card. Okay, or you might look at it like your date of anniversary, things like that you may feel that, okay, this is something that I commonly set as a password, or a probable number that you have used most commonly as a password for other pins or other areas. So these are few heuristics that you may use when you kind of adopt this mechanism. Another example for heuristics is anagrams. Okay, so like you can see in this on the screen, there are 2 anagrams, okay, wherein there are random alphabets given. So suppose you're asked to form a word out of these 2 anagrams, what is the possibilities of combinations? You will begin begin with using, you will try to arrange the alphabets in such a way that you have a consonant and a vowel side by side so that you get a pronunciation, right? Okay, so that's how you kind of form it. So that's basically a heuristic, the fact that you may kind of place a consonant and a vowel together. So then you will come up with the word simultaneously for the first one. But in the second case, if you're gonna try to use the same heuristic of trying to place an a consonant and a vowel together, you may never get the word right. Okay, so which means the heuristic of using a consonant and a vowel together does not go really well with the second word. So the second word may require you to be a little bit distinct from the first heuristic, then only you will get the word lymphoid. So this is an example that heuristics may not always be right. Okay, and you will have to be very careful while you choose heuristics. However, you need to know that cognitive psychologists have kind of identified that we tend to use a lot of heuristics in our day-to-day life, okay, because of which they have kind of incorporated heuristics as the most important approach in problem solving. So in this video, we are going to look at the different further types of heuristics. So the first different type of heuristic that we're going to look into is the analogy approach. So what do you mean by the term analogy? So analogy is basically a comparison of one thing or with another, okay, for the purpose of explaining it better or for clarifying details. Okay, so basically it's like a comparison. So when you use the analogy approach, you try to compare the current data that you actually see in a current problem. You try to compare it with any previous data that you've already gone through, okay, or you've come across, and if you find it similar, you try to see how close they are similar to each other, and how can the characteristics or features of the previous thing kind of resolve this issue. So a best example of analogy approach is, like you can see on the PPT, this particular picture of an aeroplane and this eagle. Okay, so initially aeroplanes were designed such that they are almost similar to the birds. Okay, so the structure of the aeroplane, everything was based on the analysis of how birds fly, the structure of the bird. So that is the best example for analogy approach. So when we are looking at analogy approach, you need to understand that there is a structure involved in analogy approach, which is also challenging. So the structure basically has both surface features and structural features. Surface features are features that directly appear to you, okay, wherein we directly pay attention to it. They are specific objects or terms used to describe the problem. Structural features, on the other hand, are the underlying emphasis that you need to understand in order to solve a problem. So the underlying features that you need to really comprehend to solve a problem is basically the structural features. So now let's look at what happens, okay, when you're looking at the structure of the analogy approach. So the structure of analogy approach basically has surface features and structural features. So the problem happens when there is a problem isomorph. Okay, so what is a problem isomorph? A problem isomorph states that there may be similar underlying structures and solutions, but different specific details. Okay, so the details may be a little different, maybe a little different, but the solution may be same. Okay, so that's another thing that you need to understand in the analogy approach. So for example, say there are two people coming to a doctor. Patient A says, I am having constant pain in my abdomen, okay, and I am no matter what medicines I'm taking, I'm still passing loose motion and I'm having this pain. This is patient A. Patient B comes and tells, I'm having consistent pain in my lower right side of my abdomen. All right, so both of them have given two different details. Okay, they have to, one is talking about loose stools and pain, another person is talking about lower abdomen pain on the right hand side. So like you see, they have totally different specific details. Loose stools lower abdomen right hand side are specific details that are totally different, but for both of them the doctor tries to tell them that the solution is both of you please take an whole abdomen scan and come. Okay, so that is the solution. Am I clear? So sometimes there might be different specific details, but solutions can actually be the same. So that is basically the structure of the analogy approach. Next, you're gonna look at the means ends heuristic. Okay, so when we look at the means ends heuristic, we need to know that there are two important components to the means ends heuristic. One is that we have to divide the problem into several sub problems. So that is the first thing. And the second thing is that we have to try to reduce the difference between the initial state and the goal state. For example, you are looking at weight loss. Okay, so your current weight say is 97, you want to reduce to 77. So in means ends heuristic, what happens is your goal 77 is your ends. All right, that's your ends. So you first determine the end is 77. So then you have to figure out what are the different means that will help you reach that goal. For example, the means may be 1 hour or 2 hours of exercise every day. Okay, that would be the means. Okay, and cut down on certain sugars, on certain carbs, addition of certain proteins. Okay, that all of these are gonna be means. Okay, so your sub goals your sub problems are gonna be basically dealing with diet, dealing with exercise, dealing with duration of exercise, dealing with how much of weight per month are you gonna reduce, and then how many months do you think it's gonna take for reaching that particular target goal. So that's basically an example for means ends heuristic. Next, you're going to look at the hill climbing heuristic. Okay, so like you notice when you try to climb a hill, I'm sure many of you, if not for hiking professionally, but we would have gone up and down a hill like to witness a waterfall or something like that. So when we place our legs on the platform or on the hill that looks easier for us to reach on the higher side than something that would not be really easy. So that is the hill climbing approach. Basically, you try to choose an alternative that seems to lead you most directly to the goal over alternatives that would not. All right, so when we are using this kind of an approach, it's very useful provided you don't have enough information about other alternatives and provided you're trying to do something immediate or a short-term goal. All right, this approach may not be really appropriate when you are trying to use something for a long-term purpose. When you're trying to adopt this for a long-term goal, it may not be really appropriate. For example, say you are a person who is in a financial need. So because of your financial need, immediately after your undergraduation, you think the best alternative is that you get into a job because you're going to get your monthly salary. Okay, so your financial need is about you want to increase the standard of living of your family and all of that. So keeping all of that in mind, you feel getting into a job at the earliest is the best option, so you just get into a job. But then, though it looks really nice and looks like the direct possible alternative that is really good, you soon realize that this was really nice for a short-term goal rather than a long-term goal, because you wanted to lift up the standard of living of your family. So just going away with an undergraduate degree may not really help you reach managerial positions, for which you may need a post-graduation, and you realize it really later. All right, so which means you have done a hill climbing approach, looking at the best alternative without figuring out or without looking into other alternatives. So when we are looking at long-term goals with long-term gains, it's better to actually not use the hill climbing approach. So hill climbing approach would be best for just immediate short-term goals. So with this, we come to an end of the different strategies to problem solving. I hope you all have understood this video. If you have any doubts, you can please get back to me. Thank you.